West Ham were widely regarded as the side that won the transfer market, backing new manager Julen Lopetegui. Now, 8 games into the Premier League season with a win rate of just 25%, things aren't going as they planned. So, in this video, we're going to be breaking down what's wrong with West Ham United. With the transfer spending in the summer and of course the incoming of a new coach in Julen Lopetegui, I'm sure West Ham fans would have hoped for a turnaround and greener pastures. But that's not exactly the case, and to prove that I'm going to show you this. It's a comparison between them last season and them this season. Now of course we know last season West Ham finished in 9th with a goal difference of -14, but what we're actually going to see from this season is something a bit concerning. So we can see that they've got 11 goals scored and 15 goals conceded this season. But at the same point last season, after 8 games, I can tell you that West Ham actually scored 15 goals and conceded 12. Now that's not too much of a difference, but it is a decline and it's a problem, as is some of the other statistics that they've got right here. So they're actually scoring fewer goals per game. While they do have more shots on target per game and creating bigger chances, marginally, it's not too much. At the same time, they're increasing their possession. They have 45% possession last season in comparison to 41%. That's Julen Lopetegui, I think, trying to get West Ham on the front foot, trying to get them playing, but it's not exactly coming to the forefront at the moment. Yes, they have 1 clean sheet, but they had 5 last season. That's obviously in the entirety of the season. They're conceding the same amount of goals per game, and this would be a real problem because you've changed your entirety of your back four for arguably better players, the likes of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, the likes of Todibo, the likes of Max Kilman, but it's not currently showing benefits in terms of the goals you're conceding. Fewer interceptions, fewer clearances, and you've also got a really worrying statistic when we scroll down here in that you've actually got the fact that they are winning fewer duels, winning 46% of their duels in comparison to 50%. That's quite a drop off. That's nearly 5%, and that's quite a lot. So overall, West Ham are performing worse than they were last season, and that's not the only thing that's getting me concerned. The deeper you look into the statistics, the more concerning it gets, but it paints quite a clear picture, or it at least begins to paint it. So if we were to take a look at these 2 main statistics to begin with, you've got passes attempted per match. Last season, they were attempting 430 passes per game under David Moyes. In the 24-25 season, otherwise known as this current season, they're attempting 444. So there is a small increase in possession-based football, and I believe an intent for Julen Lopetegui to get his side on the ball a little bit more. We've also seen that reflected in the possession, or the higher possession they've got. Admittedly, it's not a great increase, but it is an increase. But that's not being reflected in goal-creating actions per 90, which has dropped drastically from 2.74 to 1.87. Now, initially, you might believe that this is the West Ham players not really understanding the philosophy that Lopetegui is bringing through, and therefore struggling to really create and turn that possession into meaningful opportunities on goal. But there's another scary stat which is just below these, and these represent the amount of touches that West Ham have in the attacking third, so obviously the final third of the pitch. And as you can see, they have 128 touches on average in the attacking third. Now this is the 5th lowest of any side in the Premier League. Only Everton, Wolves, Ipswich and Leicester have fewer. Obviously Leicester and Ipswich are real relegation candidates to begin with going into the season. Everton aren't exactly known for their attacking prowess, and neither are Wolves, who are really a transitional based side. So there's almost a real contrast at play here. One side, they're wanting to pass the ball a little bit more, but they're failing to really convert that into not only goal-creating actions per 90, but also into possessional-based play. And that leads in to the major problem they've got in midfield. If we take the information that we've just learned and apply it to a West Ham side and the way that they would want to build up, a couple of things really start to come to the forefront. So we know that West Ham like to set up in their 4-3-3. This is how Julen Lopetegui wants his side to play, and occasionally you've seen them line up like this. So you've got Emerson, Kilman, Todibo and Wan-Bissaka. I think you could probably argue this is their best back four. Then you look into midfield. Thomas Souček has got 2 goals. Rodriguez is more of the holding midfielders to try and link the play, and you've got to have Lucas Paquetá in the side somehow, due to the fact that Lopetegui wants to have a midfield 3, and it is a midfield 3. When they drop back into defence position, they become a flat midfield 3. This is generally how he'd line them up, and naturally you've got the likes of Bowen, Kudus, and Antonio or Fulkrug coming into the side. Somerville might come out on the left-hand side, and some of the positions might rotate, but this is generally what he'd go with. The problem that you've got with Paquetá and Souček being almost the 8s or the additional midfielders in Lopetegui's system is this. If we understand the fact that they are struggling to cross this line, and this is the line into the final third, they're struggling to get in there. That means that they're struggling to get the ball to Bowen, to Kudus, to Antonio. Souček is round back here, Paquetá is here, Rodriguez is attempting to go forwards, and then you've got the entire back four moving their way up. Okay? So they're struggling to enter this area, right here. In doing so, and in finding this struggle, I think they're committing more players forward. So you've got Souček trying to make some runs into the box, you've got Paquetá doing the same, and you've got Rodriguez trying to shuffle about. Now, the positions might rotate, but in an attempt to try and get them further forwards, what's happening is this space is becoming far more open. And this leaves West Ham continuously exposed to the transition, which means that when they do lose the ball in certain areas, whether you get a double up on Bowen, whether you've got Antonio out-muscled, whether you've got Kudus unable to drive past a player, West Ham are actually the number 1 side when it comes to dribbles. So when they do eventually lose the ball due to maybe a mazy dribble that doesn't go correctly, or a misplaced pass which you've known they are capable of, it means that the opposition can then transition quickly. And the space in between and behind Paquetá, Rodriguez and Souček is far too great. This leaves Kilman and Todibo in a massive problem. Because Wan-Bissaka is coming to come and help with Bowen, and Emerson occasionally comes and helps with Kudus, it occasionally leaves Kilman and Todibo completely isolated. Now perhaps sometimes you might see Rodriguez drop back a little bit further, this allows the fullbacks to come forwards, but it still leaves the 3 very exposed. And this leaves them so open to the transition that it gives so many teams so many opportunities. Let me try and show you what I'm talking about. So, this is in the first game of the Premier League season between West Ham United and Aston Villa. And as you can see, Morgan Rogers has currently got the ball and he's driving towards the heart of that West Ham defence. But let's try to break down what's happening. So, this is clearly on the transition. West Ham have given the ball up because they've committed too many players forwards. And the defence is now retreating to try and compensate for the fact that Morgan Rogers is running at them. So you've got Emerson, you've got Max Kilman, and you've got Mavropanos in almost this 3. This is because Soufal has gone forwards and now he's trying to make a retreating run back to try and help his side. But you've also got Rodriguez, who is nowhere near the play. He's meant to be the stopper for this side, but he's not able to. And you've got Morgan Rogers in acres of space being able to play in either the right-hand side or the left-hand side. Major problems and so much space that is allowing Aston Villa to carve through them at will. And this is a big problem because it happened at the start of the season. But what if it happens again? Well, if we take a look at this one, this is against Crystal Palace. Notice something pretty similar. So you've got Emerson, you've got Max Kilman, and of course you've got Mavropanos. You can play a pass into the right side or you can play a pass into the left side. Do you notice some differences here and some similarities? You've got Paquetá, who's currently trying to chase back. You've got Souček, who isn't making the run. And of course, you've got Soufal over on this right-hand side. This is nearly the same situation. And my problem with this is the fact that West Ham haven't learned from it. Lopetegui hasn't learned from it. The build-up from play isn't correct. And it's continuously causing the transition to happen. And it's something that West Ham just can't defend against. But let's take a look at another one. This isn't the game against Man City, and normally you'd say, this is Man City, it's not too bad because they're such a good side. But just look at what's going on. So you've got Soufal, who's made a run forwards. You've got Souček, who is currently not recovering well enough. And you've also got the player on the ball who isn't being pressurised. At the same time, you've got a decent West Ham high line. But look at the positioning of Erling Haaland. He's not really being marked by Kilman. They're trying to play him offside, and you've got Aaron Wan-Bissaka here on this left-hand side trying to run back. It's again another opportunity with 1, 2 and 3 West Ham defenders who are not able to put pressure on the ball. They're also not able to follow the run, and yet again it leads to another opportunity. But what if it happens again? This is in the game against Chelsea, and as you can see, it's not a 3-man defence, instead it's a 2-man defence. You've got Kilman and you've got Emerson running back. But this is only in the 46th minute. This is just crazy, and this is down to the way they build up. I'm certain of it. You've got Alvarez, you've got Rodriguez, and you've got Paquetá. Nobody is anywhere near the ball. You've got a following on run from Cole Palmer. This is how he scores his goal. It's just incredible. And this happened more often in the Chelsea game because they were committing players forwards. Wan-Bissaka's last man, and he's in the opposition half. Again, this is because West Ham are committing too many players forwards, and I believe they're committing so many players forwards not only because of the way that Lopetegui wants to build up, but also because they're struggling to be able to find passes into the final third and get those touches and dominate possession. 45% possession this season. They're struggling to get into the enemy territory with 128 touches in the opposition final third. It's just nowhere near good enough. And this is the final game against Tottenham, the most recent match. You notice something a little bit similar to the first piece that we looked at. You've got 1, you've got 2, and you've got 3. It's just nowhere near good enough. And when we take a look at some of the instances, you've got Wan-Bissaka trying to run back, but you've got Souček nowhere near the play, you've got Paquetá nowhere near the play, and you've got Emerson who's making a run forwards. It's just not good enough, and you've got an option here, you've got an option here, really, if you wanted to play, and you've, of course, got an option through the centre, and this is in the build-up to one of Tottenham's goals. West Ham have a serious problem when it comes to the transition, but it's a knock-on effect from the poor play that they've got going forwards. West Ham have a couple of really big problems. They seriously lack a balanced, dynamic group of players that are able to really put in a cohesive performance together. The two sides that they have beaten in Crystal Palace and Ipswich are both sides that are really flirting with the relegation zone. And when we think about the way they build up, although a midfield 3 of Souček with a bit of physicality, Paquetá with some creation, and Rodriguez here to shuffle across and deal with danger is fine in theory, in practicality, it's not working. Rodriguez doesn't have the stamina nor the capability or the mobility to be able to move across the pitch and snuff out attacks. Paquetá isn't being utilised in his creative essence because he's not able to drift infield as much as he would previously want, and the amount that West Ham are giving up the ball is only hurting the way that he is trying to play his game. Souček is not a box-to-box play. He's not going to be able to make those channel runs continuously, and you've seen this in the transition that they've been exposed to on a number of occasions, with Souček being the last midfielder to really come back. Although they have really top quality players in Jared Bowen, Mikel Antonio I think is okay, and Mohamed Kudus being the star player, even with Fulkrug coming back into the side, you're still going to see the same problems because the makeup of the midfield is just not there. Not from a defensive perspective, and as we've already established, not from an offensive perspective. 128 touches in the opposition third is nowhere near high enough for a side like West Ham who want to be able to progress the ball forwards from a positional sense. In short, West Ham have a number of different problems, and if it's not sorted soon, I can only see them deteriorate as the season continues. Julen Lopetegui has a lot of work on his hands, and he needs to find out something soon. If not, it could get a whole lot worse. But of course, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. What do you make of West Ham? What do you make of their recent performances? And do you think they can improve under Lopetegui? West Ham fans, I'd love to hear from you, so please do get involved in the comments below. Thank you ever so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.